Happy 2020. I'm Catherine Ross, and I'm here on the floor of the NYSE with Jeff Marks, Senior Portfolio Analyst with Action Alerts Plus. Jeff, President Donald Trump has said that the U.S. and China will be sitting down to sign a trade deal on January 15th, and he also started talking about Phase 2. When should investors start thinking about Phase 2?
Yeah, I think it's too early to get excited about Phase 2 just yet. I mean, now just going back to Phase 1, I do think it was a real deal. We are seeing China, they're stepping up their imports of agriculture, soybeans. We've seen them remove some of the tariffs on U.S. product. And the things got to get signed on Jan 15th, but I think all signs are pointing that way. But Phase 2, we don't really know what to expect yet and what are the full areas that are going to get covered. So I think to be optimistic on a Phase 2 deal it would be a little bit premature right now.
Airbus has officially surpassed Boeing in its top spot. So should investors be worried that Boeing is no longer the top dog?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think a lot of the negativity has already been priced in. I think outside, of course, them absolutely shutting down the 737 MAX program, which I think a lot of analysts have think that maybe the stock goes to 275 if that happens. But I think down here it hangs in really well. A lot of that negative news is priced in, and from a purely a trade perspective, if you look back in the last 6 to 8 months, this is really kind of the interesting spot where you'd start maybe buying little shares purely from a trade, though, because I think until those planes get back in the air and it gets the proper certification, I view it more as a trade than an investment. I think there's still a lot of things that still need to happen before it gets the okay sign.
In 2019, 420 was the number to watch for Tesla, and now Canaccord is saying 515 is its price target. Should investors get excited about that?
Yeah, I had a chance to read the note, and I thought there was a lot of good points to it. They're talking about the electrification trend really accelerating into 2020, and one of the points they made that would be the biggest point for the bulls who completely won in 2019, it would be that the balance sheet issues is really more of a 2019 story than in the new year. So that would be huge, because I think the balance sheet is why a lot of investors have really scared away from owning this stock. But if I'm looking to get into Tesla, I think you have to admit that that you missed the move, that you missed the great run that it's been on, and I would just be patient, because sometimes you just have to admit that you missed it and you have to wait for a better opportunity.
Jeff, it's officially 2020, so I gotta ask, what are you watching this year?
All right, I got 5 things to watch. I think these are all, you'll hit various different sectors with this. So my 5 things I'm watching this year, it's going to be the streaming wars, and that's going to, what's going to happen between Disney, Netflix, Apple, the arms dealer Viacom, CBS. So I think there's a lot at Amazon. There's a lot of different factors at play. Comcast. I'm naming more as we run. So I think it's going to impact a lot of different stocks, and I think it's a topic very close to the consumer. So that's one area that I'm watching. 5G build-outs. I think the 5G ramping, it's going to impact everything from the speed in which we download data. There's going to be benefiting so many semiconductor stocks that are in the group. And even Apple, who is expected to unveil a new 5G phone at the end of the year, which I've personally been holding out on my upgrades for. So I think 5G is another area that's going to be an important theme. Big tech regulation, Alphabet, Facebook, a lot of these big tech companies, a lot of people have been calling for regulation this year. There's a lot of open investigations into antitrust policy, whether or not these stocks can move past these headlines like they have been doing, that they have in the past. I think that's going to be another big theme. Of course, we're going to have the election. That's going to be my 4th thing. It's in November. I think it's still too early to start maybe planning one's portfolio ahead of the election, but it's going to be a very big moment for the country, and there'll be impacts on stocks along the way. And lastly, the last thing I have is what's going on in the repo market right now with the Fed conducting operations each day. I think it would be healthy for the markets to have some certainty and have that issue figured out.
I completely agree with you on all 5 of those, especially with the streaming wars one, because
it's
a fun one, and I thought it was really interesting that The Witcher surpassed The Mandalorian in views.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, so I've heard about The Witcher show. I haven't gotten into it, but I mean, that's impressive, and maybe that speaks more to the early reach that Netflix has compared to Disney Plus, who is still kind of like the up and coming participant in this space.
I completely agree. Jeff, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us today. Guys, thanks for watching. We are now heading over to our Action Alerts Plus Daily Rundown Show over on actionalertsplus.com. Join us there, and of course, keep on TheStreet.com because Jim Cramer returns Friday, January 3rd.